President Donald Trump has said strategic issues will be on the table when he holds talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi tomorrow, calling Mr. Modi a true friend in a tweet. That sets the tone for discussions in their first meeting that will take place at around 1 in the morning Tuesday, India time. The Prime Minister arrived in Washington, D.C. early today. He has been meeting top American CEOs over the last few minutes. That comes as US lawmakers have also told Donald Trump that India continues to be a difficult place for American companies to do business. Well, my colleague Namrata Brar is covering that visit for us and joins us from Washington, D.C. Namrata, a couple of interesting things. One is this Reuters report about US lawmakers complaining that it's still not easy for them to do business in India. And clearly, that's something the Prime Minister will try to dispel in his meeting with CEOs just now. Also, tell us a little bit more about the Modi-Trump meeting tomorrow. We believe no questions are going to be taken.
Yes, Nidhi, first in terms of what is expected from the CEO meeting, as we speak, there are more than 20 CEOs inside in this special roundtable, including the likes of Apple's Tim Cook, as well as Google's Sundar Pichai. But the key question is whether Prime Minister Modi can persist with his Make in India dreams without clashing with President Donald Trump's America First dreams. And I think this has been a big sticking point. This has been a key clash between the two countries, and whether they can overcome this hurdle despite collaborating on other areas where they see more eye to eye, namely terrorism and defense, is still going to be much of an undercurrent in this face-to-face interaction, the first between the two leaders. But I'm just going to talk about the theme here with my guest as well. Richard Rosser is a prominent voice in the US-India relations at the Center of Strategic Investor Relations. Now, just talk first, Richard, about one of the key lines from your piece, which says that this might be an opening act of a friendship, or it may be round one of a very sluggish, protracted match, a slugging fest out there.
Yeah, well, we hear the leaders, when they're asked, say favorable things about the other. But in practice, we've seen some things that would certainly cause frictions. For instance, the United States talking about the executive order on Make in America and Hire American, which points at H-1B visas as potentially a trade concern, highlighting the countries with which the U.S. has a large trade deficit, India included in that group, and even calling out India as one of the reasons that the United States went into the Paris Agreement as a way to extract billions of dollars out of the United States and other developed economies. So you hear platitudes, but in practice you see some things negative. So the question is, when the leaders get together, what wins out? On the econ side, I think we're looking at a period where you might have some real frictions rising. The energy side, I think you're going to have an amended energy relationship, but I don't think it's going to be thrown away altogether. The defense side, I think, is where the most promise lies, though. We've got a shared vision. We've been a major supplier to India. We've done some things to actually help Indian defense industry stand up and manufacture itself. So defense is hopefully the area that can, I think, carry some ballast for the relationship.
But how do you talk about this visit through the prism of Donald Trump's Make America First sort of vision? Because there is a sense here that Donald Trump very much wants to be in the limelight. He's mercurial, he's unpredictable. If there's one thing that can be said about this new administration, is that it's not like any Republican or Democratic administration that India has seen in the past.
Well, the biggest thing that has strengthened ties between our two countries is when we have top-level political leadership that engages frequently. For instance, our former Defense Secretary, Ash Carter, saw Minister Parkar more than any counterpart in the world. President Obama, of course, was the first U.S. president to visit India twice, hosted Prime Minister Modi a number of times. It takes that. So, again, irrespective of what you might see in a joint statement or at a press conference, good or bad, it takes high-level political engagement on a sustained basis. The relationship is not yet strong enough where you can leave it only to folks that are at the Joint Secretary level in India, at the Assistant Secretary in the United States. It takes high-level political leadership, and it takes key points, you know, the defense relationship, things like that, to give them a reason to engage. So the summit, you may not see as many big-picture deliverables, but if they at least figure out what are those lines of cooperation that are going to exist post-Trump's election, that's still unclear right now. So a leader summit is the best opportunity, I think, to add clarity in that area.
There's an important point that you made as well in that piece that you put out ahead of this visit, saying that if India did not reach out at this point in time, Prime Minister Modi did not have this face-to-face interaction with Donald Trump, we could be in for a 4-year freeze. What do you mean by that? It's important to have this interaction to thaw relations because there is already an undercurrent of friction?
Well, there is already an undercurrent of friction. I mean, I talked about some of the things that have happened on the U.S. side, but the Indian side as well. You know, you've seen an increase in price controls in certain industries, including medical devices, stents in particular, an expansion of price controls in pharmaceuticals. A lot of folks hadn't covered, but just about 3 weeks ago, the Indian cabinet approved a new policy for local procurement for government, local manufacturing for government procurement. So American companies are sure to lose business opportunities with some of these new regulations in India too. So far, you do see, I think, in practice, more things that have been done that would negatively impact the relationship than something positive. So the leaders getting together and figuring out what are the positive areas of cooperation. Again, energy, it won't be based on the Paris Agreement, but India is undergoing a dramatic energy transformation. And the United States, our companies and our government should be there as supporters. There's commercial opportunities and there's great other reasons to do it.
Right. So thanks so much, Richard, for that insight. But Nidhi, the big takeaway here is going to be much will be read in the body language and the kind of semantics that really come out after that crucial 5-hour-plus meeting at the White House, followed by a cocktail reception and working dinner between the two leaders, because we will not get an opportunity to ask question and answers. The White House, the senior White House official said that it was mutually agreed. It was a joint agreement between the two countries, between the two leaders. But there are rumors that it was on India's insistence. However, it makes it much more interesting in terms of how so many different analysis and scrutiny will take place once these two leaders really come out with their joint statements and come out to the press and give those statements.
Well, that meeting is taking place at 1 o'clock in the morning tomorrow night, Tuesday morning, India time. So we should have a press statement from both leaders, perhaps by 2 a.m. tomorrow, Tuesday morning. Again, thanks a lot, Namrata. We'll come back to you tomorrow as those meetings happen.